Night Shift Whispers.
A secluded road, strewn with brownish gravel, stretched straight ahead, flanked on either side by towering trees with shady canopies that met in the middle, forming a long, verdant tunnel. It was exotic, like something from a famous painting. But we were heading to a hotel. Yes, a hotel that my cousin Ariana had booked online. What kind of hotel would be built in the middle of a forest like this? Wasn't it strange? Is it still far away? Again, my mother asked anxiously. Are you sure there's a hotel at the end of the road? Could it be that we are lost? We're not lost, Auntie, Ariana replied, trying to calm her down. Even though I could tell she was starting to have second thoughts about the hotel she had booked. Google Maps shows this route. Be patient, okay? It should be just a few more minutes. Dozens of minutes later, we arrived in front of the gate to a complex of buildings. The atmosphere grew dimmer as the trees around us thickened. Far away, obscured by a thick clump of other trees, was the brownish roof of a huge building, some distance from the main gate. Our arrival was greeted by two dwarf stone statues flanking either side of the gate. Both were green and covered in moss. I glanced at them as the minibus we were driving past into the hotel area. I gasped. One of the statues glanced over. Yes, his eyes glanced at me. What was that? Was I crazy? How could a stone statue move its eyeballs? My heart was pounding, but I tried to persuade myself that it was just my imagination. Maybe I was just tired from traveling so far. Ariana had planned to hold a small engagement party at the hotel the next day. That's why I was there with my parents and my sister, Cindy. The event would start at noon. My family and Ariana's family had arrived early so that we could rest overnight at the hotel. David, his fiancée, and their family, who lived in the same city as the hotel, would arrive tomorrow morning at around 9 or 10 a.m. The hotel parking lot was empty and poorly maintained, with dry leaves scattered all over the ground. And our minibus was the only one there. Why were there no other guests? Wasn't it the weekend? Supposedly many people were on holiday here. How strange. My misgivings grew stronger as we entered the lobby. It was eerily quiet, the lighting dim, like that of a lamp that had not been replaced in ages. Only two receptionists were on duty, a young man in his late 20s and a woman who looked slightly older. The rest of the lobby was deserted, not a soul in sight. After the check-in formalities were completed, the male receptionist led us to the building in the back area. The hotel was surprisingly spacious, much larger than I had anticipated. Numerous cottages were scattered around, but most of them looked shabby, as if they had not been occupied in a long time. Are all the cottages empty, sir? I inquired playfully. The young man seemed momentarily puzzled by my question. Yes, they are, Mississippi. Coincidentally, no one is staying here tonight. So we are free to choose any cottage we like? Sorry, I wish I could accommodate you, but I can't. Why? They're all empty. Yes, but they haven't been cleaned yet. What? This was getting more and more suspicious. My sister and I were assigned the middle cottage. Our parents, Ariana, her parents, and her 2 younger siblings were directed even further back into the hotel complex, which was truly impressive in size. Nothing seemed out of place when Cindy and I entered our cottage. It had a living room, a bedroom, a small kitchen, and a bathroom. We rested for a while in the bedroom, and then I decided to take a shower. Everything was fine for the first 5 minutes, until I noticed a clump of black hair stuck in the drain cover in the corner of the bathroom. Why was there hair? Wasn't this cottage supposed to have been cleaned? The presence of the hair made me uneasy, so I decided to call the hotel staff. But the bathroom door wouldn't open. I was trapped inside. I banged on the door and shouted for Cindy. She tried to open it from the outside, but it was no use. Then she said she would go and get help, and told me to wait and calm down. It took a very long time for the hotel staff to arrive. And it was the same young man from the reception desk again. Did this hotel have no other employees? Finally, the door was opened. The young man seemed calm, as if this sort of thing happened all the time. I remembered that I had intended to leave the bathroom to have the hair cleaned up. "Sorry for the inconvenience, miss," he said before leaving. "I've gotten rid of the hair waste. Please continue showering." Fearing that I might be locked in again, I showered with the bathroom door slightly ajar. I asked Cindy to guard the door outside to prevent anyone from entering suddenly. A few minutes into my shower, I was shocked to see the hair again. What was going on? My breath caught in my throat, and I felt terrified. Not wanting to cause a scene, I finished showering quickly. I deliberately refrained from telling Cindy anything, so as not to alarm her when she showered later. It was then Cindy's turn to shower. Just like before, she left the door slightly ajar, fearing that it might lock again. I took turns guarding the door outside. 10 minutes passed uneventfully. Then, Cindy suddenly screamed. She burst out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. "More hair?" I guessed nonchalantly. She shook her head, her chest heaving as she gasped for air. She quickly pulled me into the bedroom. Whispering, she told me that she had seen the figure of a woman with long black hair in the bathroom mirror, but when she turned to look at the source of the reflection, there was no one there. Darkness had already fallen, but Cindy and I were determined to join our parents and the others in the main hotel building. It was a considerable distance from our cottage, and we had to cross a long road that ran alongside a small river. On the other side of the river was a dense forest, its trees towering overhead. We walked quickly, our eyes focused on the ground, avoiding looking left or right. They were gathered in the hotel dining room on the first floor. In the corner, I spotted an old bar that looked like it had been abandoned. I doubted whether any of the hotel's services were still functioning properly. However, since everyone else seemed calm, Cindy and I agreed not to mention what we had experienced earlier. Our dinner was delivered by a food truck from outside. I had guessed correctly. The hotel didn't have any kitchen staff. It appeared that they only had a handful of employees, perhaps no more than 10. It was possible that there were only the 2 receptionists and a few cleaners. Our parents and Ariana's parents had 2 adjoining rooms on the 2nd floor. Ariana and her younger sister, Amira, also shared a room on the 2nd floor, but it was located at the end of the hallway. Meanwhile, their brother, Ardana, occupied a cottage alone not far from the main hotel building. After dinner, Amira went upstairs to her room to call her fiancé. But something about Ardana struck me as odd. He seemed to be trying to discourage people from returning to their rooms. My suspicions were immediately piqued. Could something also be amiss in the cottage that Ardana occupied alone? I decided to speak to him later. In the meantime, since I had no other options, I chose to remain in the hotel dining room with the others. Barely 15 minutes after Ariana had retired to her room, she returned downstairs, grumbling. She said that the lights in her room kept flickering on and off. Her father called the hotel staff to request repairs, or if necessary, a change of rooms. The hotel staff arrived shortly after, and yes, it was the same male receptionist. He informed us that the maintenance person was not on site. Instead, Ariana and Amira were assigned a different room, directly across from their original one. Ariana and Amira hastened to move their belongings, but a commotion erupted, prompting the 2 girls to flee frantically downstairs. Earlier, in their new room, Amira had claimed to see a figure in a red dress, with long, disheveled black hair and glowing red eyes, standing before the bathroom. My father suggested requesting another room, but the girls declined, opting to sleep with their parents that night. Ardana, too, suddenly expressed a reluctance to be alone, insisting on joining the others. I couldn't resist asking him what kind of ghost he had encountered in his cottage. He replied that he hadn't seen any creature, but that was the point. While in the bathroom, the door kept knocking from the outside, even though there was no one there. Since everyone was averse to spending the night alone, Cindy and I agreed to join our parents as well. Unfortunately, we had forgotten to bring our belongings from our cottage. We had no choice but to return to the place inhabited by the figure in the mirror, who liked to litter the bathroom with her hair waste. The journey to our cottage felt longer and more arduous after hearing Ardana and Amira's experiences. We hurried along, but my eyes couldn't help but stray to the forest across the river. In the tail of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a white figure perched on a tree branch. A part of me didn't want to acknowledge it, but another part couldn't help but crave confirmation, in the hope that I was mistaken. Foolishly, I finally turned around. And oh my God, what I saw was absolutely terrifying. Along the riverbank, in the trees, hung numerous white figures. I whimpered to Cindy, unable to bear the fear alone. But she scolded me instead and told me to hurry up. When we finally arrived at the cottage, she admitted that yes, she had also seen the creatures. After discussing for a while, we decided in the end that we would not return to the main building again. It was better to face the creature with long hair in the bathroom mirror 2-on-1 than to have to pass by so many white-clad figures hanging in the forest trees across the river. That night was sleepless. However, the next day, the engagement ceremony was held successfully in the hotel hall. Everything went smoothly until halfway through the event, when we thought the terror was over. But as David was delivering a short speech on the altar, Ariana suddenly burst out laughing. We were confused, thinking that maybe there was something funny that had made her unable to stop laughing. My mother asked her what was wrong. But instead of answering, Ariana's laughter only grew louder. Then slowly, the laughter turned into a deep voice like a man's. Ariana was clearly possessed. The solemn engagement ceremony erupted into chaos in an instant. Some suggested finding a spiritual expert to exorcise the spirit from her body, but we knew that this would be a lengthy undertaking, given the hotel's remote location. To make matters worse, none of David's family had ever heard of the hotel, even though it was in their own city. In the end, everyone agreed to take Ariana to David's parents' house and look for a spiritual expert elsewhere, before anything worse could happen. The group left the hotel without finishing the event, and the receptionists repeatedly apologized, but we were no longer concerned. As our minibus approached the main gate, I took one last, idle glance at the dwarf statue. This time, I saw one of the two statues grinning,